I don't know if I'm spoiling the rest of the list or anything, but Avatar: The Last Airbender is my favorite Nicktoon of all time. It's probably still in my top 5 favorite cartoons of all time, and it's baffling to me that this, of all shows, aired on Nickelodeon, especially in 2005. This is not the kind of show that airs on Nickelodeon, ever. Nickelodeon absolutely had more serious shows in the past, and it wasn't all comedy as it's reputed to be. They've had their Hey Arnolds and As Told by Gingers, but this is something that's completely different than anything that's ever been on the network before. And to be honest, since. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a high fantasy martial arts series that talks about deep subject matter and takes itself more seriously than just about any other cartoon that I've ever watched. This is from the network that started with the show about babies going on wild adventures and a psychopathic chihuahua yelling at a fat red cat. Avatar was also serialized and took heavy influence from anime, on a network that had an increasingly hard time keeping episodes in order when first airing them. It also came out in the wake of SpongeBob, which had permanently moved the direction of the network. Avatar: The Last Airbender is more or less the black sheep of the Nicktoons lineup, to the point where it's easy to forget that it's an official Nicktoon. Black sheep is usually a derogatory term, but I think it's a good term here. I have no idea why Nickelodeon greenlit this show, except for the fact that it's fantastic. I cannot praise Avatar: The Last Airbender enough. It is legitimately one of the few cartoons that I would give a 10 out of 10. Even episodes that are considered bad, like The Great Divide, aren't really all that bad. And those more mediocre episodes are balanced out by the other 95% of the series, which is just fantastic. Don't get me wrong, the first book of the series isn't as good as the other two. It's a little bit slower, as most first seasons are, but we do get introduced to the world and all of its characters. Even from the start, Avatar showed that it was at a high caliber, with characters that had such a unique complexity to them. I don't even know where to begin with this one, to be honest, and for a different reason than SpongeBob or Rugrats. There are only 3 seasons here, and just over 60 episodes, but there is so much quality contained within. I guess we should start with the art style. This is going to be one of my more strange opinions, although I do recognize that it is unpopular. Distinguishing between anime and Western animation, especially as we're going to the 2020s, is stupid and should no longer be done. I personally have a feeling that people only create a distinction between anime and Western animation so they can say, no, I don't watch cartoons, I watch anime. As time goes on, the distinction gets less and less useful, as Western cartoons have gotten more of an anime influence, with shows like Avatar and Teen Titans. And anime itself has had more of a Western influence as well. If the only reason that you would call a show not anime is because it wasn't made in a particular country, that's stupid. Creating a term for something just because it's made in a specific region, it's not helpful whatsoever. Kind of like how we have Japanese RPGs that weren't made in Japan, we have Japanese cartoons that weren't made in Japan, and Avatar is probably a good example of such. Avatar takes the techniques and styles from anime and utilizes them to great effect. The action within looks better than I've seen in so many other cartoons. Even though martial arts series were getting to be more and more popular around this time with Jackie Chan Adventures and Shaolin Showdown, Avatar stood as king because it realized something that those shows did not. A good martial arts show or movie or whatever is not all about constant action and constant fighting. The best martial arts media or shows take time to be quiet and delve into the philosophy of it. Martial arts is about mentality just as much as it is about physicality, and Avatar is the only show that really delved deeply into that. Shows like Shaolin Showdown tried, but in hindsight, it's amazing to how much Shaolin Showdown just feels like a beta Avatar. Like, Avatar saw Shaolin Showdown and decided to make it 100 times better. I don't hate Shaolin Showdown, by the way. When you come out in the same genre as Avatar, near the same time as Avatar, let's just say you're gonna get hurt. The characters within Avatar are just too strong. If you've seen this show, chances are at least one of the characters within it is going to be among your favorite of all time. From Toph's sarcastic attitude, to Aang's joy of the world, to Sokka's quirky humor that they removed from the movie for a reason that I cannot comprehend. I could go on, but I don't want to just list a long string of characters, because I could list just about every single one of them. Even the more minor characters like Bumi or Jet stand out strongly, each of them bursting with personality and a charisma that you don't often see in cartoons. For me, though, my absolute favorites would have to be Zuko and Iroh, especially Iroh. Iroh himself is just one of the most charming and wisest characters that you'll ever meet in any piece of media, ever. And Zuko struggling to find his way and reclaim his lost honor is quite honestly a story that anyone can relate to. One thing the show is a master of is tone and tension. And even sometimes in other great series like Samurai Jack, that could be something that shows can struggle with. Avatar always knows when to be funny or when to be serious, and they know what to make you feel and exactly how to make you feel it. One of the greatest episodes of the series is The Chase, where our heroes are being chased down by some of the villains, relentlessly. We see that no matter where they go, they are pursued and denied sleep, turning on each other more and more as they get more and more deranged.
I didn't count you. You know, no bending and all. I can still fight! Okay, 3 on 3 plus Sokka.
And then there's Azula. Azula is one of the most hateable characters of all time, and for all of the right reasons. She is delightfully evil, and she knows how to hit anyone's emotional pressure points to just make them crumble. And she's able to do it without ever becoming cartoonish. I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing that she never made it into the movie. And yeah, I suppose we should talk about that. Like I said, Avatar is the black sheep of the Nickelodeon lineup. Black sheeps are usually considered far too different to be liked from the hardcore fans. And I could see that being sorta true here. I'm sure there were plenty of people who were avid watchers of Nickelodeon that didn't want to watch something so serious, let's say. Avatar was a black sheep because it took a bigger step than most other Nickelodeon shows. It did so much that so many others did not, doing things that no other series was willing to do. Even shows like Hey Arnold. And Avatar, like many Nicktoons before it and since, was punished by the network. Like, one great mistake was making a serialized series. I cannot overstate how important streaming and digital distribution was for shows like Avatar. If you missed an episode of Avatar back in the day and didn't catch a rerun by the time it came on, well, you were shit out of luck and you were completely lost on the plot. This is not the kind of show that you can watch out of order, even slightly. And the longer a show like this goes on, the harder and harder it is to attract a new audience. I can see why they eventually booted Korra to a streaming service. I mean, I don't fully agree with what they did or how they did it, but I understood it at least. This was one of the reasons why it took so long for anime to get a foothold here in the States as well. Nowadays, you could just buy the complete series collection on DVD, but when the show was still airing, that was not possible. I wasn't able to watch the entire series in order until I was an adult, basically doing my review show. I can see why Nickelodeon didn't want much to do with shows like these in the future, considering ordering episodes used to be a very difficult problem with networks, especially Nickelodeon, because Nickelodeon doesn't know how to count. The movie, on the other hand, is something that I can't understand. You may or may not have heard this, but the Avatar live-action movie is terrible. A lot of people lay the blame at the director, M. Night Shyamalan, for the disaster that it became, and he certainly is not innocent for the end product. But let's not beat around the bush here. The studio was far more to blame than Shyamalan ever was. First of all, the fact that they even hired M. Night Shyamalan for this was very telling. It's commonly understood that The Last Airbender movie sunk Shyamalan's reputation completely, but at that time he wasn't still the next Spielberg. No, he was someone who had increasingly bad films throughout the entire decade, and people knew that this movie was going to bomb before it even came out, because he was seen as a has-been past his prime. It feels very much like Nickelodeon wanted this film to fail, considering that the studio's actions could be seen as sabotage. After they got some test scenes back from the movie, the studios saw how expensive this would be and basically moved the entire film to another country and drastically cut the budget, which is why in many scenes there seemed to be lower or outright missing effects. The 6 Earthbenders shooting one small boulder is a good note of that. I don't want to get too deep into the film now. There may be a time in the future when I talk about the film by itself, but I thought it'd be worth at least mentioning here. I would highly recommend Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you're not into this cartoon, usually I'd still recommend picking it up. It really makes a good introduction to the more story-focused serialized cartoons, since it has plenty of moments of humor and some episodes are very lighthearted. Throughout all of it, the show inspires and captures the imagination, and even to this day, there is no other show like it. Yes, including its sequel series, which we will get to later.
Asami, did you know Korra likes Mako?
Next on Nickelodeon.